Well, Melvin, you're here for the launch of the world record attempt for the most people receiving a first aid lesson, and quite apt really the fact that it's the Proact Stadium for yourself, because you had your life saved here. What are your memories of that day here at the Proact?
I actually have no memory of the day. Everything that I know about that day has been told to me by other people. I came for the game, as I've done many hundreds of times over the years watching Oldham, and I filed into the away end, which is over there. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in Chesterfield Royal Hospital about a week later. I had, with no prior warning, I'd had a cardiac arrest. I was revived by Oldham fans, actually, two Oldham fans who were trained in CPR. One of them was an off-duty paramedic, Kenny Hotwood, and together they and the East Midlands Ambulance Service saved my life, really. I was supported on that day by I think your physio, Roger Wild, and by stewards from the ground, policemen from Oldham, and so on. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the efforts of those people and the efforts of people who've been trained in CPR. So the event on the 20th of May, when you're going to attempt to break the world record for the number of people receiving a simultaneous first aid lesson, if that be the right description, is really, really important.
How surprising is it that the fact that it's not a legal requirement for clubs in this country to not have the necessary equipment?
I think it's unbelievable, given, I mean, those of us who've been around as long as I have watching football, and who have seen things like the Bradford City fire and the Hillsborough disaster and all the changes that were made in the wake of that to introduce all-seated grounds and so on. That all makes perfect sense, but at a much cheaper and more practical level, it really should be a legal requirement for all football grounds, rugby league grounds, rugby union grounds to have a defibrillator, and to have people on hand who've actually been trained in the use of a defibrillator. I don't know if Oldham Athletic have got one at sportsdirect.com park, but if they haven't, then in my opinion it would be a small but important gesture if they did.
I understand you've made a friend of one of the people involved in saving your life, a paramedic.
Yes, Kenny. I have had a couple of text conversations with Kenny. I've had a long conversation with him. When I go back to see the Oldham Chesterfield game in late March, I think Easter Monday, Kenny and I will be going out for a curry the night before and maybe a beer or two, so that I can say thank you to him. We've not been able to track down the other gentlemen who were with him on that day, and I wish we could, but yes, I've made friends with Kenny, and I'm delighted to say that I'll meet him for the first time in Oldham.
Obviously, it's been a long road back for you. Just tell us briefly about what that's involved in terms of your recovery programme.
Well, after I left here, the Proact Stadium, I was transferred to Chesterfield Royal Hospital. From there, where I spent about a week in intensive care, I was transferred to, I think it's called the Northern General in Sheffield. And I was given a defibrillator, which is a small matchbox-sized device that sits under my left arm, and he's there to shock my heart back into rhythm should the same thing happen again, whether that be at a football match or somewhere else. So I've been at home for a couple of months now, slowly getting stronger, and I suppose I'm a testament to people who come through those kinds of events with the help of others and are able to live their lives again, hopefully to the full, as a result of the efforts of others and of course of the NHS.
How has the whole experience, how has that affected your outlook on life?
Oh, that's a hard one to answer. Well, it hasn't stopped me watching Oldham Athletic. That's the first point. I don't think anything will. I think it does make you realise how fragile life is. It's a cliche to say death walks behind you, but in my case, it kind of tapped me on the shoulder on that day, life is very precious, and it's made me realise that. I never knew I had so many friends, so many well-wishers, so many people willing to help, as I say, life is precious, and anything that anybody can do to preserve that preciousness is great.
What have you made of the well-wishers and support you've had from the Latics and from supporters of the club?
Well, it's tremendous. I mean, I've been watching, as of tomorrow, I will have been watching Oldham for 52 years. I believe it was the 6th of February 1964, a defeat, of course, against Southend. But I've had great response from Athletic, great response from friends of mine who are Oldham supporters. I used to be part of a sort of loose organisation called Oldham Athletic Supporters in the South. We're going back to the ground for the final game of the season against Coventry, and we'll have a night in Oldham before that. And the club, of course, have invited me to attend the game against Chesterfield, the reciprocal fixture against Chesterfield. And I hope to be able to say thank you to people in person.